Dean and Andy, so good to have you guys back on Sports Frenzy. We've got a lot to talk about like we always do here. We're going to be talking, of course, about the Whitecaps and whether or not they're actually going to be playing a game this week. Touch a little bit on the Tigers, who now currently have the best record in all of Major League Baseball. And, of course, we'll be talking about the Detroit Lions, who released their full schedule late last week. Going to go over some of those key games and overall predictions for the upcoming season for the Lions. But first, we're going to talk a little bit about the Muskegon Lumberjacks. It's something we kind of touched on a little bit last week, just kind of the preview of potentially them winning the Clark Cup. Well, they finally secured it last night in a 4-3 overtime victory. Just an incredible game. Andy, I know that you've been kind of keeping up with this series as it's been going on. I mean, an incredible win for them really last night.
No, it really was. I mean, when you go back to the games 3 and 4 that were played in Muskegon, both games went to overtime as well. Both games had crazy goals at the end of the game that sent it to overtime. And then obviously in overtime, playoff hockey speaks for itself at that point. It's always exciting to find out who gets the sudden death goal. But, yeah, they actually lost a pretty crazy one. That game I was at in Game 4 on Saturday night in Muskegon. They were down 2-0 with just over 2 minutes to go in the game. They were able to score 2 goals in the closing minutes. The last goal, according to the official clock, was actually scored with .0001 on the clock.
As close as it can get.
Absolutely, and it sent it to overtime. It was absolutely insane. All the reaction after the game was they've never been a part of anything like that. Unfortunately, they did lose in overtime with a goal that went off the back crossbar about 2 minutes in. So it did end quick in that overtime, but just the fact they were able to send it there, Muskegon was sold out that night with over 4,000 people in the stands. So it was cool to see the community get a game like that and get to have that kind of playoff excitement, because obviously the Jacks have never won a Clark Cup until this year. But yeah, last night Jack Christ, it makes sense that Jack was the guy that gave him the win, huh? He had a hat trick, and he scored 3 goals last night, including the game winner in overtime. Was able to give him their first Clark Cup ever. What a game to have. I mean, some people don't get a hat trick their entire career at any level of hockey, and he was able to do it in a situation where you can win a championship. Tynan Lawrence, though, he's only 16 years old. He ended up being the MVP for the Lumberjacks in the playoffs this year. I believe that he scored 8 goals and had 10 assists in 14 games. So. Wow. Being just 16 years old, I mean, that's absolutely crazy. Incredible when you think about it. Again, like we kind of talked about in the past, some of these players, not Tynan, he's from United States, but some of these guys come from other countries and get sent over at that age. I mean, to be able to do that kind of stuff and be able to be recognized nationally for a title now, and you have that many goals and assists and that many points in the playoffs, it's pretty impressive and probably something he'll remember for the rest of his career. So overall, really cool. Actually, tonight I'll be going to Muskegon's celebration for the Clark Cup, so it'll be exciting to see them all come back and see the community rally around them, because they have all season long. So
yeah, no, definitely looking forward to seeing the sights and sounds from that celebration. I mean, talk about West Michigan hockey recently. You had the Western Michigan Broncos winning the NCAA Frozen Four, and now we've got the Muskegon Lumberjacks winning. So kind of becoming a super hotbed, I guess, West Michigan is for hockey.
For sure. I mean, it was always hockey in the state was always the Red Wings for like 25 years, really all you paid attention to. But here locally, been able to get the light, shined a little bit on a couple of teams. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And so obviously huge congrats goes out to the Muskegon Lumberjacks for that win. And again, we're going to have coverage from that celebration later tonight over on woodtv.com. Let's shift gears now to talk about the Whitecaps. They've been hot, about as hot as anybody in baseball right now. They haven't had the chance to play exactly this week. Mother Nature has had some different ideas for them so far. But this team still going along, still winning, and still kind of dominating there on the diamond.
Yeah, they're playing great right now. They took 5 of 6 last week, to kind of extend their lead in the Midwest League standings. And, this week, obviously, Mother Nature hasn't helped out. But right now, Whitecaps have won 8 of their last 10 games. They are 13-2 at home, so just like the Tigers. They're playing really, really, really well at home. Best record in the Midwest League, 3.5-game lead over Lansing right now. And I think this series, if they can get it in here with the Loons are 5 back. So Whitecaps can, take this series as well. Even 3-3, whatever the case may be. You still, keep Great Lakes at bay, or extend that lead. Because that first half playoff berth is what the Whitecaps are looking at right now.
Yeah, so this really is a big series for them against the Loons, if they even get to play it.
Yeah, and I think they will. The rain's supposed to stop. We're not supposed to have rain Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They might do a makeup game on Monday or throw another doubleheader in there. But, I think the series is going to get in, and like I said, Whitecaps are playing really well at home. We have Kevin McGonagall's back. Briseño's back off of the IL. So, Max Clark, I think Andy was talking about earlier, Max Clark, Briseño, McConaughey, they have other pieces now, and, if they can just continue playing the way they've been, they're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, they're already putting some validation to the statements that Max Clark made earlier in the year that they'd be the best high A team of all time. I mean, obviously the record may not be the best through that many games of all time, but they're pretty darn good. And they haven't even done it with two of their better guys, and Briseño and Kevin McGonagall. So I think I'm really happy to see Kevin McGonagall finally get back in the field because he's just had so much bad luck with injuries since he's been in West Michigan. So it's cool to finally be able to see him play. But yeah, I mean, obviously a weird week for them, but I'm sure that Briseño and McGonagall, they're not going to complain about having to play games at any point because they're probably just excited to get back out there on the field. The rest of the team will probably tell you they don't want to play on Monday. That's usually their off day. But outside of that, I'm sure that overall the way they're playing right now, it's probably hard to want to get off the diamond when you're winning that many games. So it's been a lot of fun to keep up with so far this year. And every time I've been there, they've been able to get a win. So 5-0 when I've been there. And I don't know if I've had that good of a mark yet in my tenure covering the Whitecaps. So.
Yeah, no, you're the lucky charm this
I
season,
guess.
Andy. Yeah.
Not for runs. Don't go to my games. We're a lot of 2-1 finals, 2-0. So
a lot of good games.
Yeah, for sure. It's been close.
Definitely. Well, and I think that goes. Oh, go ahead, Dean. Sorry.
No, it's okay. One thing about this Whitecaps team and kind of similarities with the Detroit Tigers is the closeness. Okay, the tight bondness. Laney Gerber talked to Max Clark yesterday, and they're just having fun going out, and enjoying each other's company, obviously supporting each other, and winning kind of comes with that a little bit. But there's a really close, tight bond with this group, just like the Tigers, and I think that's playing dividends as well.
No, it really is, because, I mean, when you look at it all the way up and down, not just the Whitecaps, but all the minor league teams for the Tigers right now. Obviously, Toledo's been a pretty big hub for a lot of the players that are kind of making their comeback right now, like Parker Meadows and Matt Veerling and stuff like that. But in Double-A, the Seawolves are in first place in their division. The Whitecaps are in first place. The Tigers just won again right now as we're talking, so they just took the series from St. Louis, and they're up at least 5 games on second place right now. I'm not sure with the doubleheader going on today with the Twins and Guardians. I'm not sure what ended up happening with the official games back for them. But yeah, it's organizational right now. Like the Tigers have just found a way to win, and I mean they came into the year ranked number 1 overall with their prospects and their farm system, and it's proving to be a real ranking right now.
Yeah, it's a trickle down effect, right? It starts from the top and kind of trickles down, and obviously we're showing right now that we have a lot of prospects throughout the organization.
Right, absolutely. Well, and I think that goes to show, I mean, you guys are talking about having those key prospects, those top prospects all finally playing together. This team was dominating without them all on the field at the same time. Now that they're all together, however long that may be, in case one of them or all of them do end up getting called up to the Tigers, I mean, this is kind of what we're going to be seeing as far as how far this team can actually go, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we actually do have a clip from that interview with Max Clark and our very own Laney Gerber. Let's check that out right now.
All right, Max, first off, we're about a third of the way through the season right now. Are you at the point in your game that you're hoping to be at this point in the year?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Obviously, starting hot was huge. For the first time in my pro ball career, I actually did. The first 2 years, just started a little slow, trying to figure out things, grab the ropes, and just understand what I needed to do. But where I'm currently at is huge. We have a really good team, which makes everything else a lot easier. One thing we've been saying is good teams have good stats. So obviously, I'm playing well, but the team's playing really well, and it just makes it a lot easier to show up every single day, even when you're not playing well. So I think having such a dominant team has helped us, all of us, when we have a bad day, just showing up the next day and knowing okay, another chance. We won yesterday. What can I do to contribute to win today?
Yeah. What do you think contributed to you finally having a hot start?
Kind of exactly what we were just talking about, the mentality aspect. Last year, there were a lot of times where if I went 0 for 4, 0 for 5, I'm showing up the next day a little nervous or anxious or pressing for hits, whatever it may be. And now it's just I didn't win yesterday. What can I do in order to win today? And that shift in mentality has helped a lot. It's an easier way to just flush the day prior and be ready for the next day.
And you said before that the reason that you are having so much more contact with the ball now is just your off-season work has just allowed you to hit pitches you weren't allowed to hit before. It's a loaded question, but what kind of work goes into being able to hitting pitches that you weren't able to hit before?
A lot of body positions. The year, like you said last year, even no matter if I was seeing the pitch well that day, or if he didn't even execute a great pitch, there were times last year where my body was in a position where I couldn't get off a good swing, couldn't get off my A swing. And that can only get you so far. Obviously, I was gifted with God-given talent to put the ball in play and like hit pretty much anything that's thrown in the zone. But this year I'm able to do that and damage the ball, which has helped so much in terms of average slugging and all the other stats. Just being able to produce and damage at a higher clip has helped me as a ball player tremendously. So, it's a lot of stuff that's like, I could talk for hours about this stuff. Like, it's just getting the body in positions, understanding pitch shapes, and just having more time at the level too. Like if you look at last year in low A, like it took me a while, and then towards the end of my stint there, like everything else, all the numbers ticked up, and that's kind of the same thing. Like I've played pretty much the same amount of games in low A and high A now, so just getting an understanding of the pitches and what the pitcher is planning to do against me as well has been huge.
All right, great stuff from Laney there. And obviously, manager Tony Capicelli deserves a lot of credit for how he's gotten the team kind of ready and dealing with players' injuries and, certain players not being there in the lineup. I mean, seeing how this team has progressed, it really hats off goes out to him.
Yeah, I would say the guys call him Cap, and I've talked to him a few times, and he's just super laid back, and, he wants the best out of his players, and he's going to let his players play, right? I think he's kind of a player's manager, but, he did a great job last year, and, he has obviously on the right track right now. But no, he's played such an important role in the development of the young guys, and obviously you see the success that they've had, is kind of warranted by the way he kind of manages the team. So like I said, laid back approach, guys are having fun. He's having fun. He desperately wants the guys to do well, right? And, you can see him, home runs, big hits and stuff like that. He's getting excited. And so it's just a great atmosphere right now.
Yeah, it always helps to have talent, but it still takes a lot to manage it sometimes because a lot of these guys are still really young and haven't even gotten a lot of experience this level yet. So sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. I think it says a lot that he's been able to get them to play together, kind of all being new on this roster this year for the most part, and the fact that he's been able to get a lot of the guys that weren't maybe expected to start for them on most days. So, yeah, it's been a great job by Capicelli so far this season. He runs things kind of in a different way when it comes to practices and stuff, but it seems to be working for the Whitecaps. So.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully they are able to get some games in this week. I know a lot of people are planning to be out there for the Memorial Day weekend. So fingers crossed they get to take on the Loons at some point this week and hopefully continue to extend that lead they have there in minor league ball. Let's move on to the Tigers now a little bit. Obviously just as hot, if not hotter, than the Whitecaps are right now. Best record in the majors, like I said, 8-2 in their final 10 games. Andy just said that they just beat the Cardinals. They're going to take that series. This is these close games that they've been kind of having and then kind of see them kind of pop off a little bit. I mean, this is just going to show that this really wasn't a fluke last year and that this team is for real. No,
it's starting to get to the point where you're asking how many wins are they going to end up with. Right. I mean, I believe they're 33-17 now. I know coming into this morning it was on pace for an 107-win season. Wow. I don't know if you can really plan for that, but I definitely think it'd be hard to imagine they're not going to get 95 wins this year at this point with the way they're playing right now. It's just been a lot of fun to watch. Yeah, they just took the series from the Cardinals. That's the team that kind of, is getting measured against them. There's been a lot of stuff saying that the Tigers haven't played good teams or good lineups. I mean, it's still early enough in the year that some of these lineups that haven't produced yet, some of them will probably be good towards the end of the year. The Tigers are beating teams good, bad. It doesn't matter who they are. What the Tigers do is they execute their game plan no matter who they're playing against, which I think is the most impressive thing about them. They just kind of have the will to win. They find a way to get runs across. I mean, this series against St. Louis specifically, for me, was very impressive because they kind of had some pitching injuries for the first time. Reese Olson's dealing with in his middle finger, he's got a little bit of tension there. Not sure what the official injury is. He's not placed in the IL yet. Casey Mize is expected to come back off the hamstring on Saturday to make a start from what I've been hearing right now. But either way, they didn't have either one of those guys for the series. Terry Skubal pitched the middle game and pitched pretty good, but he only went 5 2/3. So they've had to use a lot of bullpen arms so far in this series. And today was a bullpen game alone, and they only gave up 1 run. So the bullpen was kind of the one area that, as of the last week and a half, 2 weeks, people were kind of like, they've been giving up a few more runs. The offense just kind of been backing them up, and then they come out today and do that. So it's really hard to find a gripe with this team and a weakness right now because they're just playing so well. And MLB.com came out with power rankings this week and put the Tigers at number 2. I don't understand how they're not number 1 right now over the Dodgers. Like, I really don't get it. That was coming off a sweep against the Angels, too, for the Dodgers. So right now it's hard. Like, with the Tigers' depth, sure, they don't have the names. They don't have the big names that the other teams have, but with their depth, it's hard to argue that they're not the number 1 team in baseball right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like those power rankings kind of depending on Shohei Ohtani's name alone. So the Tigers, they don't have Shohei, but they have, again, the best record in all of Major League Baseball.
They've shown this is going to stick, too. It's not like it's just like a small sample size. Going back to last year, they've been playing at this pace. So
Right. Yeah, Dean, I mean, what has been the most surprising, or I guess the best part of watching Tigers games this year? You know, being a fan for so many years and kind of seeing them finally put it together after being, I mean, quite frankly, kind of bad the past couple of seasons, minus the end of last year. Seeing them kind of bounce back and be this top team in the league. I mean, what has been sort of the best part about that watching experience?
To me, it's their ability to win close games.
Yeah.
You know, like there was so many years that, you know, if you had a tie game, go to the extra innings or whatever, like as a Tigers fan, you kind of expect them not to win the game, right? Now, like especially last night with Riley Green getting a huge hit in the ninth inning, excuse me, to win 5-4, and you just expect the Tigers now. You know, they might lose the lead. You know, it might have a 2-run lead, but bullpen might give up a couple runs and they tie it. But you have confidence in the Tigers' ability to come back and win games. That's what good teams do. They finish games out. So I just been impressed by that, and then. You know, there might be some people out there who are like, all right, when are the Tigers going to slip up? When are they going to lose a series? And it's just not happening right now. Like Andy said, they're being good teams or being bad teams. What I love about this team is there's some teams that, like, they get a big lead early innings and they just kind of, like, maybe, like, settle. Okay, Tigers tack on runs. You know, like, they scored runs in, I think, 4 different innings today. So they don't get complacent. They don't just, like, all right, we have a big lead, we'll let our pitching. They really work hard, and they have good at-bats, and they manufacture runs, and, you know, that's what good teams do. They just continue to add to their lead, so we're not in these tight situations in the ninth inning where, you give up a possible, run and lose. So I love that ability for the Tigers to extend leads, and, obviously it's working.
I love your point about the close games, too. I mean, last week against Boston, if anybody watched that series, how about that? All those games were decided by 1 run. The first 2 against Toronto were decided by 1 run. And then they won that middle game in this series against St. Louis by 1 run. So you're talking about in the last 8-9 games, that's a lot of 1-run baseball games, and they won most of them. So they've proved that they're able to do that even when the game's tight. But I think the one thing that nobody really expected this year was how well the offense is playing. Because, like I kind of said, the bullpen has had its moments now where they've been giving up some runs. The Tigers just find a way to get another run. I think last night, like you brought up with Riley Green, winning the 5-4 game. That's like one of the best examples right there. It's like that's a game last year when the league gets away from the Tigers like that. You don't feel like they're going to win it. This year, it's their offense is right there to get a run back and keep the momentum in their favor. So it's just been impressive to watch.
And that's confidence, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
To me, like, you have confidence in each whoever you send them to the plate. You have confidence in their ability to get a big hit. Get a sac fly. Like, do whatever you need to do to get the win. There's just that confidence I think that the Tigers have right now. Like, hey, doesn't matter what just happened. We're not going to dwell on that. We're going to win this game no matter what.
Yeah, and it makes the games a lot more fun to watch, too, because you're just waiting on who's going to step up each and every game. So, but speaking of just, the variety of who's going to step up and just having all these different players, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches for the Tigers. I never thought we'd be saying that, but they don't even have some of their top guys. And soon, we are expecting them to come back and be immediately put back in the lineup, but that might not be the case. I mean, they kind of have an embarrassment of riches in a little bit of a way. I mean, how are they going to handle this influx of returning players and prospects, trying to get them some action? I mean, how do they kind of manage doing all that?
They're going to have to earn their way for playing time, that's for sure, because Matt Vierling coming back is probably going to be the most, I think he might be coming back on Thursday from what I've been hearing for the Guardian series this weekend. It might be his first series back. Last year he was an everyday regular player, and coming into the season you would have penciled him to play every day. He definitely would have been coming back to play center field, but Javi Baez is like plus 3 runs saved out there. So he's not going to lose that position. Maybe he'll come to third base. My guess is Justin Henry Malloy will probably be the player that gets sent down. Yep. And what's crazy about that, I mean, Justin Henry Malloy has had a tough season so far, but he did win him a game last week against Boston. So it's like they just have so many people that it makes really hard decisions for AJ and Scott and everything else. But I'm sure that's the decisions that they want to have to make. But yeah, even when Parker Meadows comes back, it's like, you're going to give him center field back because there's an argument that he's maybe the best center fielder in the game, if not one of them, when it comes to defensively. But it's just so hard to take Javi out of that spot right now. But I'm sure he'll be open to it. Obviously, he was willing to make the change from shortstop to playing out there. So, yeah, no, it's definitely been exciting to watch. I guess the one thing that'll be really interesting is what – I'm sure we'll talk about this more than just right now, but – the trade deadline coming up in the near future. Like, do the Tigers need to add a piece? Don't they? I mean, Dean, do you have any opinions on that?
I think we talked about that a little bit. I don't think right now they do. Like, there might be some fans out there who are like, hey, they need to add, a piece here or there. But, like, do you see it? Because I guess I just don't see it right now. Maybe come July it will be different. But, like Phil said, you got guys coming up. And, like you said, I think AJ Hinch, they have some tough decisions to make, and whoever's playing well, but he does a good job of getting a lot of guys into the game, right, to pinch hit.
Yeah.
So he does get guys into the game, so they're not not playing 2-3 straight days, whatever the case may be. But yeah, interesting decisions coming up with some of those guys coming back.
Yeah, obviously Alex Bregman was like the name in the offseason that everybody wanted. He decided to sign in Boston. Obviously Detroit was able to win all 3 of those games, but I'm not going to take anything away from Alex Bregman. He's a great player. He's been great this year. He was great against the Tigers in that series, but obviously Nolan Arenado was kind of the other name that was floated around, and he played against the Tigers this week. He hit a home run. He didn't want to go to Detroit and waive his no-trade clause because he didn't want to play for a team that wasn't a World Series contender. Well, now they're a World Series contender,
Yes.
so maybe come the trade deadline that'll change. Obviously, a lot of things can happen in 2 months. That's the only player I would consider. Obviously, his bat speed is slowed a little bit, but I think if you give him a chance to get another ring and play at a team like this, I think it might be a little bit better. He's still hitting pretty well and playing a good third base. So there's nothing wrong there, but I do agree with you, the fact they don't need to add anything there. I think the one thing for me that I do want them to add, though, is one more bullpen arm. I do want them to trade some of their prospects at some point, because the Tigers they're 29th in the league when it comes to contact rate out of the bullpen, so they play a lot of pitch to contact. And against Toronto over the weekend, the one game that they did blow in the 9th inning, it was because they kind of just slapped some hits around and got runs, and that's where the Tigers bullpen's kind of been getting beat lately. I would love to see them go out and get one more arm that can kind of throw around 100 miles an hour. They don't have that, like a Aroldis Chapman or anybody that can throw fire out of the back of the bullpen. Will Vesta's been great in the 9th inning so far, and Tommy Kahnle's been great with that changeup. I would love to see one more arm get added out there that can really, really throw some heat. But that's my one thing, and bullpen help is probably the easiest thing to trade for.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they have a wealth of prospects, as
Yeah.
we've just talked about, I think that's something they almost need to add at the deadline with where they're at right now.
Yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on there. Another thing that we are keeping an eye on is, of course, I know it's months away at this point, but football season will be here before you know it. The Detroit Lions recently released their full schedule for the upcoming 2025 season. Really quickly want to go over just some of those important games that are going to be on that schedule. Again, they do open things up at Green Bay on September 7th. Then they welcome in former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, the Chicago Bears. They're going to be back at Ford Field that following week. Then the week after that, they take on the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore. Then a couple weeks later, they obviously have to travel to Kansas City, take on the Chiefs. Always a big game there. They play Minnesota a couple weeks later at home. Then they take on the Commanders because they're on November 9th. Again, that's a matchup of last year's playoff game. Then they go to Philadelphia, take on the Super Bowl champion Eagles, and then they wrap things up with Chicago. I mean, a lot of big games. When the Lions first released this, I was kind of shocked just how many big games are actually going to be on this schedule. It makes sense for how successful they were last year. But guys, I mean, what is that big game that you have circled that you can't really wait for, honestly, and just so excited to see that matchup finally happen?
Well, first of all, for me, the Lions have one of the toughest road schedules in the league.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at other words,
I don't think it's
you could have given them
competition there.
like a tough team at home, but you didn't. Every single road game they have is going to be tough. The one I'm looking at early on is Lions at the Ravens.
Yes.
2 years ago, Lions blew the doors off, right, and absolutely trounced them. So to me, that would be a good early test against a good Lamar Jackson, obviously running quarterback. So that's the kind of game I'm looking at. I think that game is going to be on national TV. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, there's 9 of them that are going to be on national TV this year. So.
Yeah, they have a lot. They're going to get a lot of love throughout, the entire country. So, but that's a good early test, I think, for the Lions, to, just defensively, to see if they can step up and win on the road. And I think, to me, and we'll talk about this later, obviously, they're not going 15-2, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
But all these road games are going to be difficult, and they won the close games last year. Hopefully they can do the same this year.
Yeah, I think it's like this is what you want, right? You don't want it like everybody complained about how bad the Lions were for years. They can never get it right. When you get it right, people want to watch you around the nation. So this is what happens. You get all of these primetime games. Obviously playing on Thanksgiving and Christmas. I know Christmas is a big debate around the country right now if the NFL should even be played in that day. But that is another day where it's like you'll be put in the spotlight, even though it is only on Netflix. But yeah, it's crazy to see the Lions with all these games like this, and there's a reason for it. I mean, it's hard for me to not circle the. I agree with you, Dean, 100% in Baltimore. I do think that's going to be a great early season test for them, just because without the coordinators and stuff, losing both your coordinators and having 2 new guys come in, that is going to be a big deal, and I'm interested to see how they handle that game on the road. But it's hard. It's impossible for me to not circle Kansas City. Jared Goff hasn't lost to them yet. Patrick Mahomes wants to get his first win against them, so I think that's a big one. Obviously, you got to look at, but any of the divisional games, I do think that one on Christmas could end up being a huge game against the Vikings. I really like the Vikings this year. I think that they're going to be another team that's right there competing with the Lions all the way through their schedule. So I'm kind of circling that Christmas Day game late in the season. Obviously, a lot of people will be paying attention to it, whether it's on Christmas or not. So it could be for the division. So to get the 3P, I think that might be the game they have to get through. So that's probably my biggest one right now on the road at Minnesota in Week 17. But like you said, Dean, it's going to be a tough road to even get to that point where that game will matter like that.
Yeah,
Right.
I also like the back-to-back games against the Commanders and the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
Back-to-back on the
Yeah.
road.
Right.
Lions have been really good at revenge games, right? Like with the Niners last year, they went there end of the season and played really well and beat them. So I think Commanders is obviously a revenge game for them after what happened to them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then you have the World Series champs the next week. So like,
Yeah.
there's no easy weeks for the Lions this year.
No, this is gonna test Dan Campbell and his
Yeah,
staff. I mean, it really is. Like when you look at the schedule, it's not. It's if there's anybody you want to put up against it, I feel like if you're in Detroit, you probably want Dan Campbell to be the guy. But this is gonna be tough. That's for sure.
And any worries, I guess, with the Bears this season, you know, kind of having Ben Johnson now as their head coach, kind of leading that team. Any worry as far as those two games for you guys?
I have mixed emotions about. I just don't like. I like Ben Johnson in Detroit. I didn't like him going to obviously another divisional team. But like he's a young coach, right? Who has to kind of learn his way. So I don't think that they're going to be up to being able to beat the Lions, right? I know Ben Johnson's probably going to have some motivation to beat the Lions, but the Lions are going to have motivation to beat Ben Johnson, right?
Yeah.
And so like I'm not too worried about the Bears this year. I know a lot of teams pick them to be second behind Detroit in the North. I don't know. I just don't see it. But maybe I'm just a Ben Johnson hater.
That
I
may
don't
end
know.
up being
I don't know.
that may end up being the 10th nationally televised game at the end of the year
Right,
if it is
right,
a
if
big deal
they-
because
yeah.
that one is still TBD. It's the only one that doesn't have a time on it yet. But I don't think it will be because I don't think that the Bears are going to be that good this year yet. Again, kind of just going off what you said, Dean. It's really hard to come in and be a first year head coach and I don't know produce like that many wins, especially when the Bears didn't really. I mean. They were in a lot of games last year. Maybe he's the guy to get him over the hump, but it's so much easier to be a coordinator than it is to be a head coach. It's proved to be that way time and time again in this league. And again, it's really hard for the to beat the predecessor sometimes. I don't think Ben Johnson's going to have a lot of success in the division against Dan Campbell, at least not quite yet. So the Bears are not really the team that worry me. That those should be the games the Lions should be hoping to win, I think, with some of the other challenging ones they have in their schedule. That's for sure.
Right. One other game I want to point out to everybody is that on December 14th, the Lions are actually going to be traveling to LA to take on the Rams. So again, another installment in sort of that Stafford, Lions, Detroit rivalry that's going to be playing. That's a game that I've got circled. And I think around that time, that's sort of later on in the season, that's when we're going to kind of get a better idea of playoff seeding for the Lions potentially. Is there a game when you guys are kind of looking through the schedule that you guys kind of have earmarked saying that this is going to be the tell-all of this season for the Detroit Lions?
I like that situation that was kind of brought up about Washington and Philly back-to-back because I feel like at that point in the season you're going to kind of know where the Lions are at record-wise, and they got some challenges out the gate, obviously, with Baltimore and Kansas City and the Bucs. The Bucs have not been an easy team for them to play the past couple of years. I mean, honestly, when you look at the schedule, it's really just the Giants that aren't a team that probably are not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
Every other team, you can make a debate that they'll make the playoffs this year. So it's hard to narrow it down to that. But yeah, for me, it's gonna be that Washington game where their record's at that point and what they kind of need to do to get over the hump. So and then obviously have to go to Philly the week right after that.
Yeah. And I'm talking about late in the season. I think that the first 6 games are going to tell a lot too, right? If the Lions can go 4-2 during that stretch, I think that'd be really, really positive.
Yeah.
You know, if they can be 5-2 going into their bye week in week 8, that's going to be really good. So, because you look at toward the end of their schedule, the last 3 games are Steelers, who I don't expect to be very good this year. The Vikings, and you have the Bears. So your last 3 games, are going to be easier, obviously, than the rest of your schedule.
It's still Mike Tomlin though. They always
It is
go,
still Mike
they
Tomlin.
always go like 500. They
But they
always
have to
find
find
a
a
way to be
quarterback.
They
competitive.
will
But
find
they
a
need a
way to go
quarterback.
8-8-1.
Exactly, they'll do that. That's what I'm
But
saying.
if you have Aaron Rodgers, they're not going to go.
Yeah, no, I
I'm sorry. And he's expected to sign with them, but I'm sorry. This is not.
Yeah.
no, for sure. That wouldn't be my first pick at quarterback either.
No.
But
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's one of those things for the Lions where there are so many challenging games, but I guess this is what you want when you're one of the good teams, right? If you're truly one of the good teams, this is the year to prove it. That's for sure.
Yep.
It should hopefully make for some good games at least. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we get some awesome matchups. Or we have some awesome matchups. Hopefully, the games kind of are the same way, and we get some high scoring games. Hopefully, Lions win them all. But that kind of leads into the next question. Of course, I mean, with this, we don't have obviously a full look at each and every team that's on the schedule. There's still training camp, there's still preseason, there's still those breakout stars that are going to be coming out through all the rest of the season. But just based off what's on the paper right now for this schedule, do you guys have a record prediction? Do you think it's going to be? I mean, and Dean touched on that they're not going 15-2 again. Yeah. But is there a more reasonable record that you guys kind of have predicting wise for the Lions?
I mean, the thing for me is like maybe the Lions do get better because they get healthier. They were missing a bunch of people on their defense last year, so maybe they could. I'm not gonna count 15-2 out from this team from what they did, but I'll pick 11-6. I don't think that they're gonna be quite as good as they were a year ago. That's for sure, and it really is nothing on their own doing. They lost both their coordinators, and we've just mentioned it, 3 or 4 times. The schedule is just ridiculously tough.
Right.
You have to go on the road and play those kind of teams. You're gonna play in a lot of close games. I don't know if they're going to be able to win all of those games this year when it's that close. So I just think they take a little bit of a step back. I do think they still make the playoffs and probably get a wild card berth, but I think unfortunately the NFC North championship run might be done. But again, what Dan Campbell said, doesn't matter how you get there. They know what their goal is at this point. Once they get there, it's going to be put whoever in front of them and try to win it. And if you're the Lions, I think the one thing you got to look at, even if the season doesn't go 15-2 and almost perfect, hopefully they can learn some things along the way from some of those games they do lose against some of those tougher teams that comes back to help in the playoffs. But I'll take 11-6.
Yep, I'm gonna go one better. I'm gonna go 12-5.
Okay.
And did you say they're not gonna win the North?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. I disagree with you. Okay, I think they're going to win the North again. They're going to make the playoffs, kind of like Andy, obviously, like Andy said.
Yeah.
But no, just some very tough games that the Lions are going to drop a couple, but I don't think it's going to kind of hinder their season as a whole. They're going to continue to battle, and that's what Dan Campbell teams do. So they might lose some close games. Obviously, last year they were able to win all those close games, but this year they probably do drop a couple of those, and like Andy said, take a little step back. But I'm amazed at some of the predictions I've heard. I know it's obviously super early, but I think I read somewhere they had Lions going 9-8. Yeah. I saw something the other day that didn't have the Lions making the playoffs.
Oh wow!
I'm like, what are we talking about here?
I will say it's not impossible.
No,
because
of their schedule, they could go
Yeah.
9-8, but you know what? They still can make the playoffs too.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, I just don't see this team having 8 losses. But like you said, new coordinators, but get the same guys back, and we get Aiden back, and we get some of their guys healthy, and some of the pickups we have. I think we're going to be in good shape.
You got to hope the defense makes the difference this year because they're going to be playing some pretty tough defenses. But look at the quarterbacks they're going to be facing this year. Yeah,
you're
for
right.
sure.
The running quarterbacks, the Burrow this year, but like you said, you're going to have to play defense against these guys.
No, it's just, for me, it's just like that window to win a Super Bowl is so small. It asks a lot of other teams around that you would have thought would get back. Like, ask the Bengals that you just mentioned. Last year, what happened to them? So it happens quite a bit to these teams where they make these runs at it, and what happened to the Lions in the first round of the playoffs last year, it's going to take a lot of what they like to call grit. It's gonna take a lot of that to be able to get through and get back this year to competing for the NFC Championship game again and trying to get over the hump, because it's really tough to be good in this league for a lot more than 3 or 4 years unless you're like the New England Patriots. So it's tough to sustain success. We'll see if they're able to do it.
Mm-hmm. All right, just so I have it correctly, because I'm going to be bringing this up at the end of the season to see how close we were. So, Andy, you've got them going 11-6 and still making the playoffs as a wild card team. I'm assuming you've got the Vikings taking the NFC North this year.
I do have the Vikings taking the division.
Wow.
I think Kevin O'Connell finally. I'm always the bad guy, but I was right last time when I was the bad guy, wasn't
Listen,
I?
J.J. McCarthy is not going to be leading Minnesota to the NFC North Championship. I'm sorry.
He wouldn't do that to Detroit.
Okay, but you would have said
But
Sam Darnold was not bringing it down to that game in Detroit last year either, right?
Sam Darnold has not. I'm sorry, J.J. has not played one NFL game though. Sam Darnold
Doesn't
has lots
matter
of
to me.
experience.
Sam Darnold was dead in the water until he played for Kevin O'Connell. So I love his coaching style. I think they'll be there at the end of the season again. And I do think that game is what will be. I don't know. It seems to be set up for it. I think it'll come down to that again. I think the Vikings get it this time. It's tough to win 3 years in a row in that game. So
well, gentlemen's bet on that.
All right, sounds good.
Absolutely. And
I'm
Dean,
good with it.
12-5,
Yes.
winning the NFC North, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, just making sure I've got that all correctly.
Yep. Okay.
Before we go, though, I mean, one thing I love about the NFL schedule release is seeing all the different teams and seeing how they kind of release the schedule with all these different videos. What did you guys make of Detroit's? You know, I know last year they had Tim Robinson do sort of the schedule release. What did you guys think of this year's? Did you get a chance to check it out?
I actually did not.
I did not
okay.
either.
No.
Oh, okay.
Apologize.
Well, you know what? This doesn't matter then. Well,
Well, hey, I did see the one that Miami got in trouble for.
yes.
Yes, I saw
So
that.
yes, I did
yeah.
see that one, which is kind of ironic, but like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Now, for me,
So, it's-
unfortunately, it's more like what's in the paper that I'm looking at
Yeah,
over
right.
over that stuff.
You don't care about all the frills of that. I got you.
No.
That's a
unfortunately
social
not.
media thing.
Yeah.
And
I
like,
will go back and
hype
watch
up
it.
things.
If you
Yes.
ask me next week, I will.
It
definitely-
was well done. You know, I think obviously a lot of attention is on the Chargers because they always do a really good job. They did sort of a Minecraft version, which was really, really
crazy.
cool to
Yeah.
watch.
Super relatable right now.
Yeah,
That's
but
for sure.
the Lions kind of took a simpler approach, but still really well done. Better than the Raiders. You know, my Raiders did not do a very good job. It was very corny, very cringe. So definitely check that one out. It was also like 8 minutes long for some reason.
Wow.
Yeah, did not really enjoy that. But yeah, no, Lions was good. Definitely check it out after this. So, all right. Well, Dean, Andy, that's all the time we've got. Really appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. Thanks, Bill.
Mhm.